Hello, welcome to Maltbox. I'm Andy and this is Whisky review number 19, and what I have for you today is something very special indeed, and that is, if I don't drop it, is the Lagavulin 8-year-old, which I hope you can read on that label, and it is another sample, so I do apologise. However, this was very kindly gifted to me by my good friend Sean over at dramming.co.uk. Pull that. So the Lagavulin 8-year-old is a limited edition release bottled in 2016 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Lagavulin Distillery, and they settled on an 8-year-old release because a writer in the 1880s named Alfred Bernard wrote a book called The Whisky Distilleries of the United Kingdom, and he tried an 8-year-old Lagavulin and described it as exceptionally fine, which is good. So here it is, an 8-year-old Lagavulin. Now it's been bottled at 48%, non-chill filtered, but they don't say anything about the colouring, so make of that what you will, because it is quite light, to be fair. Matured in refill American oak and refill European oak, which, you know, you might be tempted to say it was natural colour, because refills do tend to look like this, but if not, then, you know, it would have been a hell of a lot lighter, if it could possibly be any lighter. Now, Lagavulin, think the 16-year-old big sherry, punchy 16-year-old whisky. In terms of cost, the 8-year-old is about 50 quid-ish, 50, 53 quid, and the 16-year-old is about 50 quid as well. So really, you're getting half the age for the same amount of money. However, they are two very different whiskies. I'd like to stress that before we get started. They are two completely different beasts. Now, just to sort of illustrate that, we'll get on with the smelling, the nosing, etc. and the tasting. I'll just get on with it. Right, first thought, it's very refined. Pepper, crushed black peppercorns to start off with straight away, and that's before the smoke even kicks in. It's instantaneous, but you just get this little bit of cracked black pepper beforehand. Signature sort of smoke, but I mean, we're expecting that, it's a Lagavulin. But for me, think when people have a fire in their garden, when they're burning dried leaves and broken branches. A little bit of orange zest in there as well in the background, and marzipan. And then the longer you leave the nose in there, you get this sort of like lovely smoked barbecued meat flavour in the background as well. In addition to that sort of that barbecued meat, you do then take a turn back towards the sea. You've got iodine, you've got salty spray, you've got a bit of seaweed that's been lying on the rocks for quite a while and just dried out in the sun. And then you've still got the smoke in the background behind all that, just holding everything together and enveloping it in this sort of very homely kind of smoke, if you know what I mean. I mean, you're almost really, and it is a bit of a cliche in the whisky world again, but think like a bonfire on the beach. So you've got the smoke there, you've got the sea spray, you've got the dried driftwood. A little bit of cream and a little bit of vanilla in there actually as well, just on the edges. Right, so on the palate, I mean, it's got lovely legs, hasn't it? Hopefully you can see those, but it's got very sort of slow, thick legs in the glass. So onto the palate. Relatively good consistency. Initially what I actually get is a very sweet, lemony, cinnamony, hot toddy, but then straight away again the smoke then comes in, And again, you've got a smoked meat, but think like a really strong smoked sausage kind of thing. And it gets smokier as it goes, but again, it's not blowing your head off. It's very refined. There is a little bit of that creamy edge to it as well going on. The longer the palate goes on, so you get a little bit of like a dry moss or like a vegetation kind of note in there. And the longer it goes on, it dries out, so you edge away from the creaminess and sort of like damp notes as well, and you just kind of get that dry smoke again. I'll go back to that. I mean, something that was just fleeting on the first taste, but I'm definitely sort of pinning it down now. Apple crisps, which sort of a relatively new fad. You can get them in Tesco and stuff like that in a little packet, but they are actually quite nice. I call it a fad. I eat them quite a lot. So apple crisps, which basically is like slice of apple, bit of sugar on and baked. Smoky bacon, or smoky bacon crisps. We're going back to the Wheaties again, aren't we, from that previous review. And then it sort of reverses back. Sort of like corners of my mouth are getting really sort of savoury sort of flavours that I can't quite pinpoint, but it makes you want to just sort of barbecue something. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's fantastic. Fantastic palate on that. I mean, the finish, oh, it's got a bit of lemon sherbet then. God, isn't that weird? Finish, clean, very clean, long. You've got a little bit of smoke in there, but you've got a bit of salt water as well. Oak sawdust, so not necessarily just oak influence in general, but particularly sort of like, you know, really wood shoppy sawdust smell, and kind of a bit of lemon as well. I know I've just mentioned lemon sherbet back on the nose again, but there is just like a little bit of lemon sort of seeing it out. So overall, kudos to Lagavulin and to Diageo for bottling that whiskey, because that is a fantastic dram. And I think on that note, I'm going to score this whiskey an 88 out of 100. So not only does it fully deserve that sort of score, but I think the 8's kind of appropriate. So on that note, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.